Enterprise resource planning systems are buckling under their own weight. If you work in enterprise tech, you already know this. We're witnessing an immediate, high-stakes transition right now, moving away from failing legacy systems and jumping straight into AI-driven, agentic architectures. This explainer dissects the core mechanics of that exact transition. We're talking about abandoning static, rules-based software monoliths for dynamic, autonomous networks of AI agents. The question isn't if this disruption is going to happen anymore, it's how radically it's going to restructure enterprise operations.
The financial burden of just maintaining the status quo, it's completely unsustainable. Based on McKinsey cost benchmarks, most large enterprises are burning anywhere from $100 million to $1 billion just to migrate the traditional ERP systems. $1 billion! The economics here are notoriously brutal. These one-off implementation costs routinely hit a massive multiple of the baseline subscription cost. What does that mean for you? It forces your organization into a grueling 4 to 5 year payback period. That is half a decade of locked capital, literally crippling your organization's digital agility.
Look, the traditional delivery model is broken. Between 65 and 80% of large tech programs blow right past their planned budgets and timelines, and just 25 to 35% actually hit their targeted cash flow impact. Now contrast that massive, systemic failure rate with the imminent reality of AI delivery. Current research is showing us that AI agents have the raw potential to reduce the effort needed to implement ERP systems by at least 50%. That cuts the total program duration entirely in half. Productivity is no longer tied to how many humans you can throw at the problem. It's scaling exponentially.
Section 1. The high-stakes ERP conflict.
Right now, organizations are torn between two completely competing visions for how to integrate AI into their operational backbone. On one side, we have this radical vision being called the SaaS apocalypse. In this model, the traditional ERP just ceases to exist. AI agents replicate the ERP capabilities, your data scatters into microservices, and application logic is generated entirely on the fly. Wild, right? But on the opposing side, we have the realistic necessity of the stable backbone. This perspective argues that without a foundational ERP architecture, organizations risk a chaotic proliferation of custom agents that will just completely undermine scalability. So, the resolution to this conflict? It's a structural compromise. The legacy ERP remains, but it becomes headless.
Section 2. The headless agentic architecture.
Okay, let's actually define the mechanics of this headless configuration. The defining shift here is the structural decoupling of the user interface from the back-end system. Enterprise interaction is moving away from screen-based, human-driven transactions. Instead, autonomous AI agents step in to mediate, decide, and execute the workflows. Because the interface is decoupled, this whole architecture relies on 5 strict pillars. First up, value mission control. Second, an agentic operating model that layers right over the system foundation. Third, human empowering processes that completely redefine the end user's role. Fourth, an enterprise-wide business ontology, which is really just a fancy way of saying your data schemas adapt on the fly rather than staying rigid. And fifth, a clean core applications and data foundation.
In this dual-layer architecture, structural responsibilities are cleanly divided. Up at the top, the agentic app layer handles the flexibility. It uses low-code UIs and APIs as an insights interface, which allows AI to compute data and orchestrate workflows at the edge. But beneath it lies the lean, rigid core. And this layer is absolutely locked down. It strictly controls the rules, the relational database structures, and the native workflows. Think of it this way. The core provides the auditability and financial accounting standards that enterprises legally require, while the app layer provides the agility they desperately want.
For this headless architecture to actually function autonomously, we really need to examine that first characteristic in more detail: value mission control. Static, one-time ROI metrics, those are completely obsolete in an agentic system. Autonomous decisions demand continuous impact assessment. In simple terms, you need to know exactly how much value an AI agent is generating minute by minute. Why? So you can kill the underperformers and scale the winners. Organizations achieve this by embedding telemetry and feedback loops directly into the architecture itself.
Now, with agents handling the day-to-day execution, the role of human workers undergoes a massive shift. End users stop being transactional specialists. Their entire workflow gets compressed into 3 precise governance steps. 1. Set the intent for the AI. 2. Validate the outcomes generated by the agent. And 3. Intervene only during exceptions. Moving forward, organizations are going to require a workforce that balances deep domain expertise with high AI fluency, constantly refining the system's decision logic.
Section 3. structural friction, and core limits.
Transitioning to an agentic ERP ecosystem is not just some frictionless software update. There are deep systemic challenges and architectural depths that actively threaten this modernization effort. Market momentum is accelerating, sure, but it is highly uneven. Recent data from Deloitte indicates 43% of organizations are actively investing in ERP modernization in 2025. But flip that around. That means over half the market is still sitting on aging infrastructure, just stacking new technical debt on top of rigid platforms. As independent business units rapidly adopt localized AI tools on their own, they actually suffocate end-to-end workflow transformation.
The temptation here is to simply layer AI on top of bad legacy systems, but we have a historical precedent for exactly why this fails. Robotic process automation, or RPA, allowed companies to chase quick wins at the periphery, but all those structural data issues remained completely unresolved in the core. Agentic AI is vastly more powerful, but it will hit the exact same ceiling if the underlying data foundation is fragmented. Overlays simply cannot compensate for a polluted core when you require real scale and consistency.
You can have absolutely perfect data, but humans are always the ultimate bottleneck. While AI agents drastically accelerate coding, data migration, and automated testing, your human workforce still actually has to adopt the new workflows. Resistance to change, and the friction of retraining your teams to act as governors rather than just data entry clerks, that is going to be the heaviest anchor on your speed.
The second major constraint is what we call the customization trap. Generative AI makes it incredibly easy to build bespoke solutions for practically any process. But enterprises will actively avoid using individual AI-generated solutions for basic commodity processes. Think standard invoice routing or basic data reconciliation. Why? Because bespoke AI logic lacks traceability. When you're dealing with critical infrastructure, organizations are always going to prioritize auditable systems of record and guaranteed vendor support over a highly customized, untraceable code generation.
Section 4. Phased Modernization Action Plan.
So how do enterprises actually execute this transition without triggering a total operational collapse? We turn to the sequential implementation framework. The transition strategy is strictly sequenced into 3 clear mandates. Step 1. Protect the core. You have to secure the native workflows and relational databases necessary for compliance. Step 2. Decouple the interface. Separate the data insights from the rigid UI to maximize AI integration at the periphery. And Step 3. Keep costs in check. Minimize your technical debt by enforcing clean core principles rather than building endless custom workarounds.
Wholesale replacement of legacy platforms is just way too risky. It's honestly like trying to change the engines on a plane mid-flight. Instead, the progression maps out very clearly. Organizations must first implement UI and UX changes, essentially preparing the front end. Next, they execute modularization, breaking the monolith down into manageable components. Finally, they enable API integration, which allows the new AI agents to communicate cleanly with the core data systems.
Now here is where this architecture actually generates speed in the real world. In the sales order lifecycle, agents eliminate manual data entry by orchestrating the workflow entirely by APIs. Over in accounts receivable, AI automates data aggregation to flag priority actions, structurally reducing days sales outstanding. And in predictive planning, agents rapidly consume historical performance data to output highly accurate ML-driven forecasts. These aren't just hypotheticals. These are measurable, high-impact operational improvements. To truly scale these use cases, the enterprise approach absolutely must shift from build to buy. Launching isolated custom pilots is an operational dead end. You do not want to try and maintain a fragmented zoo of homegrown AI agents. It's a nightmare. Standardize through vendor platforms to survive. Organizations have to rely on ERP vendors to provide embedded, out-of-the-box AI solutions to effectively reimagine full business domains. We conclude with the ultimate compliance barrier. As we decouple the interface and let agents mediate these workflows, a massive structural question remains. Will auditors actually trust AI-generated financials? Trust cannot be coded. It is derived entirely from strict baseline auditability. The entire success of the ERP SaaSpocalypse hinges on whether assurance teams can validate the outputs of this headless architecture. Because without undeniable transparency into the agentic decision logic, the engine just stops. Packaging blueprint, thumbnail and on-screen visuals. Thumbnail text hook, the ERP SaaSpocalypse. Thumbnail visual concept, minimalist, dark mode background. a single, sharp, glowing 3D monolith representing a traditional ERP database cracking down the middle, with bright, autonomous, glowing orbs representing AI agents extracting data from the fissures, high-contrast, cinematic lighting. Key graphic assets. The decoupled architecture diagram, a layered visual showing the agentic app layer, low-code UI, APIs, analytics, floating above a heavy, solid, lean, rigid core, rules, database, native workflows, required for slide 8. Cost versus value graph, a visual representation of the traditional 4 to 5 year payback period of $100 million to $1 billion migrations versus the AI-optimized timeline that cuts duration by half to be referenced during slide 2 and slide 3.